For the last 300 years, crop circles have appeared all over the world. But even after years of study, we still don't seem to know their true origin. Are crop circles something that occur naturally on Earth through climatic change that's causing the migration of underground water? Or are they communications from the spirit world, as so-called crop watchers believe? Views poles apart.
There were two balls of light that came over this one area of the field, and the crop went down in a matter of seconds, just like some energy was pushing it down.
Are crop circles no more than the work of graffiti artists in fields of grain?
These two men claimed they had been the source. They had made the crop circles.
Some crop circles are hoaxes, but melted meteor particles showing radiation exposure, which are normally found in outer space, have been found by scientists at the core of some circles. Are governments involved? Have fields of grain become massive target ranges where secret agencies test the latest Star Wars weapons, only to then try to buy silence from locals?
I have spoken to farmers who have been approached and paid money to destroy what has appeared in their fields.
Are crop circles real, or is the whole thing dubious? But with such intricate patterns and evidence of iron contamination and radiation, can crop circles really be hoaxed? What's really going on inside these fascinating structures? Looking for answers, we asked students from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology to take up the challenge of scientifically creating a crop circle to precise specifications.
How's the radiation levels look?
Our youngest and brightest discovered that creating crop circles is a difficult and dangerous pursuit. Wading through rows of crops is the stuff of nightmares. With the power to feed or starve whole civilizations, these endless rows represent either the bounty of a feast or the despair of a famine. The mythology of crop fields, though, for the most part, was limited to the realm of fairy tales and nightmares, but took a dramatic turn in the 1700s. The safe realm of myth disappeared when crop circles appeared for the first time.
The first crop circle documented, as far as we know, comes from English folklore. It's known as the Hertfordshire Mowing Devil, 1678. And this shows a circle spiraled around in oats, and this is cut into a wood carving. There is a script that goes with this, which refers to the devil arriving as a red light from the sky and cutting a circle into the field of oats.
Crop circles were reported sporadically throughout the 19th and 20th centuries, with a curious build-up in crop circle activity and pattern complexity beginning in the last 25 years.
Farmers began to report in the late 70s, 1978, a set forming an overall geometry. 5 circles suddenly clustered, forming an overall geometry of a Celtic cross. It was 1978. And then continuously since then, circle with a ring around it, 2 rings around it. And then in 1990, for the very first time, we had 2 circles connected by a straight line. The phenomenon itself has not looked back as far as its complexity is concerned since that day.
By the late 1980s, hundreds of crop circles had been documented and researched, and each year they multiplied and developed in structure. It's almost as if an intensification of communication or language was becoming more complex as the years progressed. England became enchanted with the beauty and mystery of these circles. Journalists, scientists, and the curious flocked to Wiltshire to investigate the phenomenon. The Queen reportedly had the book Circular Evidence included on her recommended reading list. Then in the summer of 1991, the Today newspaper made an astonishing report.
Everybody was told via the newspaper that these 2 men claimed they had been the source. They had made the crop circles.
Enter Doug Browley and Dave Chorley. These men claim to have made all the crop circles in England for the previous 15 years, using only a plank of wood and a rope. With unsuspecting families and under the cover of darkness, Doug and Dave would sneak out and make each of these circles in under 4 hours.
I suspect they indeed did make some simple circles, but I greatly suspect that the entire story has been somewhat fabricated.
For many, Doug and Dave solved the mystery, but for others, Doug and Dave's story not only failed to explain everything, but also preempted an onslaught of copycat hoaxers.
This was the biggest setback in the serious study of the phenomena.
Apart from small, die-hard groups of scientists and worshippers who took the discipline seriously, the subject was beyond the glare of the public. Until, inexplicably, a sudden blitz of media attention about crop circles, heralded by the release of a Mel Gibson blockbuster, Signs, and no fewer than 2 other feature films and 10 documentaries, began to titillate audiences. What changed about crop circles that warranted all this attention? What, if anything, has been learned about crop circles? We know that the crop circle shape can be hoaxed. But what about the anomalous data that scientists are compiling during their surveys? Can this data be duplicated by science? We went to the campus of the prestigious Massachusetts Institute of Technology in Cambridge, USA, where we asked 3 students to look over the crop circle research and design an experiment to reproduce the results in the real world. Dom and Lisa, as well as their classmate Dev, are all members of the MIT Aerospace Engineering School. The MIT students are joined by Nancy Talbot of the BLT Research Team Incorporated.
Hi.
BLT is the only peer-reviewed scientific organization currently conducting crop circle research. Nancy has brought field samples with her that clearly point out the anomalies collected at what BLT considers authentic crop circles.
I figured that there are 3 primary components that you might try to replicate. The first parameter is expulsion cavities.
Okay.
These are holes blown out at the plant stem nodes. See that hole there?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
They're much smaller, obviously, in wheat or barley.
That's the expulsion.
Theory suggests that damage to the crops may have been caused by exposure to high levels of microwave radiation.
Now, these particles are pure iron, by and large, and they're magnetic.
Nancy showed them evidence of radiation exposure and elevated iron magnetite concentrations that are often distributed over the perimeter of crop circles. It wouldn't be impossible for a hoaxer to do this, but it would be very challenging. During the meeting, the MIT students witnessed firsthand the bizarre conditions of the plants that are found inside the crop circles.
Can we pull one of these open and take a look at it?
Sure.
I'm assuming these are from...
Are these?
Yeah.
The findings are so intriguing that Dom, Lisa, and Dev agree to attempt to duplicate the anomalies scientifically in a field of wheat in southern Ohio. They approach the problem in MIT style.
I'm definitely looking at it as an engineering project. We have a set amount of deliverables, and we just have to figure out what process do we do to recreate them.
If you do assume that they were man-made, that someone would go through all this trouble and take all this time and actually do a fairly high level of scientific study in order to create these things, it's pretty incredible that somebody would take the time to do this.
Well, a generator out there, we can use as big an apparatus
We can't do that
if we
because
want.
we're gonna have to place it down all the time. Unless we plant ourselves, radiate, press down, move to where we press down, radiate, press down.
It's pretty clear with the evidence that they've given me and the like the samples I've looked at that this isn't just a couple of old guys with a board wandering around in a field. It might be a couple of old guys with a board and a microwave wandering around in a field, sure, but someone put a lot more effort into it than that. This is a great hack.
Little did the MIT students know they were setting themselves up for an adventure that would pit them against the very forces of nature they came to study. From their base in Cambridge, Massachusetts, Dom, Dev, and Lisa have agreed to create scientifically a crop circle in a wheat field in southern Ohio. Like any assignment at MIT, they dig into the available data to glean clues about the crop circle phenomenon.
Path there, path. You can see these track lines from the machine.
When and where will crop circles form? After 300 years, the few human witnesses have only described crop circles occurring at night, all with strange balls of coloured light appearing. There is no explanation for these unidentified objects. Over 90% of the world's reported crop circles occur in the UK and within a single region of Wiltshire called Milk Hill. Over 390 cases last year alone. How can this be explained? Some researchers attribute this abundance of circles to the unique soil conditions and the underground water table or aquifer.
The basic theory is that the large volumes of water moving underground in southern England acts as a dynamo, creating an electrostatic field which causes the plants to collapse.
Perhaps this ground electrical charge, which is greater than in other areas, could be functioning as an attractor to an atmospheric energy system, rather the way lightning is drawn to Earth because of the negative and positive charges.
The whole process can take as long as 4 hours, or as little as a few seconds. Human efforts are more predictable since the advent of Doug and Dave.
There's another well-known person there that makes them with a garden roller. It's a lightweight plastic garden roller, extremely effective, extremely quick. It's a quicker process than the plank of wood. You're still looking at many hours of work. A 75-foot diameter circle, which is a relatively small one in terms of what we see these days, would take something in the region of 40 minutes.
Colin points out that skilled crop circle makers are fighting a losing battle with the clock in a formation like Milk Hill.
You know, some of these are huge patterns of over 200. The galaxy at Milk Hill now is more than 600 circles. Some of those are 75 feet in diameter alone, all appearing in 4 hours.
Usually the crops are so damaged by the process of being pushed down that the patterns will remain until harvest time. In areas of high crop circle concentrations, such as Milk Hill, this means a loss of income for the farmers.
Oh, the Milk Hill Formation was absolutely amazing. It took up practically a whole field. I went into it 3 times because it was so enormous and it was so beautiful. It was just totally amazing.
The Milk Hill area has become a hub of crop circle mania. Several pubs are cashing in on the phenomena. Shops sell crop circle memorabilia, and circle fans can even choose among a huge number of private crop circle tours. Denny Clark leads the magical mystery tours every summer.
We stay at bed and breakfast places so that we get to meet the local people. And much of the time we're visiting crop circles. I want to give people the opportunity to experience the magic that pervades the area during the summertime, because it really is special. It's a very special place and a special phenomenon.
Die-hard crop watchers will go to any length to witness the supernatural formation of a crop circle.
Crop watching. Crop watching is when people go into the countryside at night time and sit on a hill and look at the fields below, hoping to see a formation being made, ideally.
Sometimes the crop watchers are lucky and find themselves close enough to witness the formation of circles. Danny describes a recent event.
There were 2 balls of light that came over this one area of the field, and the crop went down in a matter of seconds, just like some energy was pushing it down, and then another couple of balls of light came over and disappeared. It's miraculous. They're like miracles in the fields, and we can be a part of it.
It's undeniable that there is a crop circle phenomenon. People are creating, studying, and believing in crop circles. But what is the hard evidence that has been collected, and what does it mean? There are anecdotal claims of miraculous healing qualities.
I've heard of a couple of instances of people that have had cancer that have gone into crop circles and then had the cancer go into remission. But I think they're very healing on a more mental level too, because they give us that peace. We can experience that peace, and we can take that home with us.
What does hard science tell us? So far, the only peer-reviewed scientific work has been coordinated by the BLT research team in Cambridge, Massachusetts.
The difference between the BLT attempt or effort and most of the other work is that it's being carried out by bona fide scientists using standard scientific methodology.
It was for these reasons that the BLT research team was selected as the official database for the crop circle construction experiment conducted by the MIT students.
You were saying that the geometry isn't absolutely crucial, so we didn't need to directly mimic another crop circle, but something along the lines of just an average circle and maybe something on the interior.
According to BLT data generated by Michigan biophysicist W.C. Levengood, there are strange anomalous findings common to all crop circles that they certify as real.
The primary energy signature in plants from an authentic crop circle would include some or perhaps all of the following: expulsion cavities in the second node or perhaps the third and fourth, node bending possibly. In the soils, we would be likely to find these magnetic particles, magnetic spheres, again in the 10 to 40 micron diameter range.
Other less obvious anomalies suggest we're dealing with ultra-sophisticated molecular manipulations of the environment. This goes beyond what a hoaxer could achieve. The more they find out, the more experts assert that these effects are far beyond the scope of garden rollers. The MIT students will focus on 3 primary crop circle traits: expulsion cavities in the nodes, iron particles in the soil, and a balanced geometry.
These are holes blown out at the plant stem nodes. If you can see this hole, the idea here is that the moisture inside the plant stems is being heated very quickly. The external fibers, in this case, expulsion cavities, are too rigid to stretch. And so that's why we get the holes. What we're going to be looking for are tiny little particles, these spherical particles that are deposited in the soils.
The MIT students, like most people learning about crop circles, were not expecting physical changes in the field samples.
I wasn't expecting all the iron particles, all the deposits. The radiation was something that I could imagine would not be too out there, too otherworldly, I guess. But otherwise, I think it's pretty straightforward. It is interesting, though.
MIT is famous for tackling unusual problems and finding solutions. During the Second World War, MIT was instrumental in refining radar technology, to the ultimate detriment of both German Luftwaffe and U-boat wolf packs. Today, MIT works on everything from quantum physics to artificial intelligence. Dom, Lisa, and Dev don't believe in crop circles, but they've agreed to duplicate the findings of the BLT research team's crop circle site surveys.
Well, we're gonna do the crop circle to engineering spec. I don't know if we're gonna touch the science side. We're not trying to explain anything necessarily. I think we're just trying to show that a number of the effects that we find in these crop circles, these ones that people find naturally, I guess you would say, we can do. Just say that, yes, it's possible for a person to do these with the right amount of equipment and the right amount of time.
Southern Ohio in the summer. The winter wheat crop has been growing since last autumn and will soon be harvested. Some of the wheat will meet a different fate. A group of students from MIT is bearing down on this prey. They've traveled from Cambridge, Massachusetts, along with a collection of special equipment. The students have agreed to scientifically duplicate the main features of what researchers consider to be authentic crop circles.
The kids at MIT are going to try to replicate some of these changes that we've been documenting for so many years. And then another group of MIT kids is going to evaluate whether or not they accomplished it. The changes that we've decided to look at are the expulsion cavities in the plants. In the soils, we're going to try and replicate these tiny little 20 micron, 30 micron diameter spheres distributed in a linear fashion. If they can pull this off in growing crop, I'll be fascinated. I I don't see how they can, but it'll be interesting to see.
The fields south of Kerry Town were selected because of their similarity to the crops grown in the Milk Hill region in southern England. The students quickly survey the area and discover that crop circle hoaxing will not be much of a problem, at least as far as footprints are concerned.
Okay, well, we've come all the way from the Winnebago, so there's been no tracks so far, so I don't think we're gonna have a problem with
No,
taking our
I don't either. I mean, look at these like nice machine-planted rows. You
Yeah,
got like
exactly.
6
That's what we've been
inches of walking straight.
I don't think it's gonna be an issue at all.
The owner of the farm, Jason Boakman, checks on the team. The students need access to a workshop to assemble their crop circle gadgetry. Jason obliges, and they head off to an adjacent structure. The first weapon in their arsenal is the basic crop circle maker, developed by the original hoaxers Doug and Dave.
I'm gonna use some 2x4s just to like mash down big chunks of crop at a time. Wow, it works pretty good.
In another area of the shop, the MIT graduate students, Soz and Mark, help out their undergraduate colleagues by completing an iron meteorite cannon. It'll be used to deposit iron particles in the field after the circle was made.
The code, so we are the engineers. We can demolish 40 years. We come all day, come along.
There's a long tail on this funnel. I think we should bend it forward so it's pointing in the direction of the airflow.
Is going to be a funnel that is attached to the microwave.
Lisa and Dev make final adjustments on the portable microwave device.
This is the magnetron. Microwaves are generated here. Microwaves travel through this waveguide and into this waveguide, and then come out this end. There's a hole, and are dispersed to the field.
We've got all the different parts of a microwave repackaged, and we put them in this locker box so that it would be easily portable into the field.
Assembly complete, the students prepare to test the microwave unit.
There it goes. Oh.
Something is wrong. The microwave device has caused electronic gear used by the film crew to go haywire.
So what happened? I was just monitoring the audio, and all of a sudden I got this, just kind of this weird RF interference, and it literally like sucked all the power out of the batteries. I had just changed these batteries an hour ago, and usually that'll last half a day to a day.
The failure of the video equipment was due to a leaky microwave waveguide, but it's an eerie reminder of the misfortune that other film crews have endured while covering crop circle stories. It seems that electronic equipment has difficulty operating in some completed circles, even with no known sources of radiation.
After 10 years in the field, you can't dismiss it any longer. There's no question that there is electrical interference with cell phones, with batteries in cars, camera batteries. We have camera malfunction all the time, where they then become unusable subsequently.
The students test the meteorite cannon. The flames will blast a mixture of iron filings and iron dust, fusing them into small 50-micron particles, similar to those found in the BLT crop circle data.
Are you guys hungry?
I'm very hungry.
The Boakman family, in a show of spontaneous hospitality, treats the students and crew to food and homemade pies. They're glad to feed the crew, even if they're not exactly sure about the project.
So what have you heard what's going on here? What did you hear?
Something about aliens.
The MIT students have already dealt with the first hurdle, the shape.
Yeah, we're gonna do, I guess, this thing first. That's circumference. So Dom and I are gonna head out here. We're gonna go and we're gonna lay out the first circumference, and then we're gonna work our way in.
It's not surprising the range of emotional responses elicited from these incredible designs. The shapes of crop circles seem to bewitch people in many ways.
I think there is something fascinating to me, certainly, intriguing to many, many thousands of people. They are geometry which speaks to intelligence. It speaks to something, albeit a form of nature that knows what it's doing.
These patterns in the fields are said to be taken from geometric shapes used as sacred icons dating back to ancient man and recorded over the centuries by many civilizations, including the Celts, Aborigines, and Native Americans. In non-verbal traditions, crop circle patterns seem to convey visual profundity to the observer.
So Dom and I are gonna head out here.
All the equipment is checked and ready. The final plans will have to guide them through the gauntlet of crop circle construction under pre-agreed conditions.
It's getting late, guys. I hope you know that the standard for crop circles is under 4 hours. You think you can make it?
I think we can make it.
We'll see. Yeah, right.
Okay. So everyone grab a board.
Best of luck, guys.
We'll make you proud.
No mag line.
Oh, by the way, there's a ditch.
Oh, thanks.
Welcome.
With nearly 1 hour elapsed, Dom, Lisa and Dev begin to get in sync. They've laid out the crop circle and are beginning to fill it in using the rope and board method. They maneuver through the field like a marine unit, even sharing similar gadgetry such as night vision goggles and global positioning devices. The military may be more than a metaphor. Many who study circles believe that the real crop circles may in fact have a true military connection.
I have spoken to farmers who have been approached and paid money to destroy what has appeared in their fields. I have also spoken to a farmer who was woken in the middle of the night by a loud sound of rotor blades. He looked out of his window, his animals were going crazy, and he saw in that field that night a Chinook helicopter.
The next morning, the farmer discovered a crop circle in the shape of a large insect.
Did this Army helicopter arrive because it knew that something unusual had occurred in the field? I don't know, but I do know this. Doug and Dave stepped forward, and they too claimed the phenomenon. Directly behind that, a man called Jim Schnarvel was a CIA contractor who wrote a book stating, once again, that this whole phenomenon is a man-made fraud.
Nearly half of the 4-hour allotted time has elapsed. Dom, Lisa and Dev will have to pick up the pace if they're going to complete the formation in time.
Here. Look at us. We made a circle.
You made a damn fine
Wow.
circle. All right.
Your first crop circle.
Oh wow! Look at that. Like it. Yay! We're good, Dev.
This crop circle was complete and has been done in winter wheat. Crop circles, as their name implies, are circles formed in different types of crops. But researchers claim that this title is not nearly broad enough to explain the wide variety of locations where circle formations can be found.
The media basically named them, and that's what we are now sort of pretty well stuck with, inferring they all appear on crops, which is actually not the case. It is the whole range of cereal crops are involved. We have had a number of incidences in trees. There are cases of geometries appearing in snow, and indeed outside of MIT itself in Boston.
Ice circles and snow circles have been photographed and documented. There have been rumors of sand formations, cloud circles, and even unusual livestock movements. But unlike their more flamboyant cousin, the crop circle, these alternative circles remain largely unresearched. Back at their crop circle camp in southern Ohio, MIT students Dom, Lisa and Dev are ready for the next phase of the experiment. Some scientists have discovered expulsion cavities on the plant nodes in crops found within the circles. How these anomalies have occurred continues to baffle the scientific community. While unusual things have been documented, it remains to be seen what is causing these occurrences. Over the decades, many theories have been presented. Some scientists believe the answers may be found in little understood Earth phenomena. These high atmospheric energy discharges are known as red sprites and blue jets. They were only discovered in the 1990s. Perhaps a cousin of sprites or blue jets is responsible for crop circles. Theories involving plasma vortices seem to dominate.
One is a plasma vortex, which is a rotating field of electrified air, which illuminates, can be seen at night, and could account, it is suggested, for some of the UFO activity.
The problem with that theory is a lot of these looked very patterned and very regular and a little too even for Mother Nature to create.
Because England's weather generally is relatively mild, whereas in the United States we have often quite violent weather, that it may be that these energy systems, this plasma energy system, interacts with local weather conditions. And if local weather conditions are turbulent, it may have an effect on the final result on the plants.
Theories from the opposite camp have a familiar sound, erring towards the supernatural.
Other theories were extraterrestrials could be doing this from spaceships, perhaps with laser weapons, or perhaps our own military was using laser weapons.
Another group has come out with a different theory. The Midwest Research Group holds the belief that most of the circles are indeed made by man as a sacred art form.
Simple circles randomly appear all over the planet and have been for hundreds of years. But the elaborate pictorial graphic designs are the work of human pagan artists, and they're anarchists.
Ron Russell believes these artists have inadvertently made sacred places with their crop creations by meditating and invoking good spirits before they begin their art.
The human circle makers, as a spiritual group, do a little invocation of the earth energies and the fairy spirits and elementals that may be around, and may their effort be for the benefit of all mankind. And the result is, yes, it is valuable. The result is amazing.
Midwest Research did an experiment of their own based on their new theory and measuring the results with an electrostatic gauge.
We made a little crop circle with anger, with no intention to do something good. And that crop circle had no energy at all with our devices. The crop circle that we did for the benefit of humanity, and that had dramatic energy.
Minor fluctuations in electrostatic charge would not account for the extreme damage found in the crops, such as expulsion cavities. Cavities will only form if the crops are being exposed to dangerous levels of electromagnetic radiation. To replicate this effect, the MIT students have created a portable microwave device to superheat the shafts of wheat and create the expulsion cavities. It's risky, however, shown by the destruction of professional sound equipment during the testing phase.
Right now I'm turning on the microwave, and it's actually on, so just stand back a little bit.
Dom wears chainmail under his clothes to protect himself from the scattering microwaves. Because the group is concerned about knocking out our crew's video equipment and possibly nearby cell phone towers, Dom keeps the waveguide aimed at the ground. The radiation from the microwave gun simulates the conditions found in other circles. We know what's happening in this field in Ohio, but what can explain these conditions in other regions? It certainly is possible that crop circle hoaxers do have access to magnetrons and silver-coated flexible waveguides, and to laboratories to tune up the microwaves, but it would be all rather far-fetched. Microwaving the field took longer than expected. With little more than 20 minutes left in their challenge, Dom, Lisa and Dev move on to the meteor cannon, which in MIT tradition they've renamed in German gibberish.
The Flammschmeißer.
Oftentimes in crop circles you find these small rounded iron particles, and we're going to use this instrument, the Flammschmeißer, to duplicate that effect. It's going to shoot out a shower of iron particles into this flaming propane ring here and distribute them over the field. John, do you want to get a shot of us putting it on?
Josh, are we okay here with extinguishers?
Yeah, please. Perfect.
And let me know, give me a sign.
In the meteor cannon, a hot flame is peppered with a 100-mile-per-hour airstream laden with iron powder and iron filings. The flames blast and liquefy the iron, causing it to form into 15-micron charged spheres, such as might be found in naturally occurring meteorite showers. How or why real crop circles have more of these particles than the rest of the planet is a puzzle that the students are not trying to answer. Their job is only to build a crop circle to specifications in 4 hours, and that goal may be slipping away. They're simply running out of time. Manually seeding the crop circles with iron particles is too slow. They'll have to come up with a faster method, and they have less than 5 minutes in which to accomplish it. Could this long journey degrade into a fiasco? The only chance open to the MIT students is to resurrect an experiment discarded because of a high risk of fire. Like any assignment at MIT, Dom, Dev and Lisa dig into the available data to scientifically duplicate the main features of what researchers consider to be authentic crop circles. But with less than 2 minutes left, they're running out of time in their specially adapted motor home. They decide to try and resurrect an experiment discarded earlier that night.
This actually will give a nice radial distribution of any particulate that we place within it, and it will also raise the temperature to such a degree as to melt it to produce the iron filing characteristics that we've seen in other reported crop circle incidents.
Somebody must have gotten it.
Dom, Lisa and Deb have wired up a pyrotechnic device that has been tested only once before. If it works, iron particles will be distributed in a linear pattern over the circumference of the crop circle. If it doesn't work, then weeks of preparation will be lost. The countdown starts barely ahead of the master clock. If it misfires, there's no time to fix it. Southern Ohio has a temporary feature that connects it to a great mystery. Crop circles are found all over the world and in many different shapes. The MIT students patterned this circle after Kresge Hall on their campus in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Other crop circles are formed in many different shapes, and the phenomenon is not even limited to crops. The activity around the MIT students' crop circle has subsided. Inside the Winnebago, it's a time for sleep. Weeks of preparation are over. Dev stretches out on the bed. Lisa snoozes with her ever-present book. And Dom, unable to stop working on the project, has collapsed on top of their crop circle plans. Meanwhile, at a nearby helipad, postgraduate students Mark and Zoz begin their analysis from the air. Even to Mark and Zoz, the sight of crop circles was still one to behold, conjuring complex emotions from something as banal as fallen wheat. As the helicopter circled around for another pass, the unthinkable happened. Power was lost. The pilot auto-rotated, and just as suddenly the power returned. Was this a coincidence or something more ominous? Other aerial surveys of crop circles have complained of strange events occurring in the air above the formations.
There was a case that is the most interesting one I know in England very recently. The photographer was in a helicopter. At 500 feet, she started to notice the image breaking up in her digital camera. As the helicopter descended to 300 feet, the digital image lost color entirely. As the plane went back up to 500 feet, the image came back in full color. I have no idea how to explain that.
The aerial survey complete, they return to the landing pad for debriefing.
We made an initial approach and I took some photos, and then almost immediately as we approached the crop circle, we started to lose a lot of altitude. The helicopter dropped almost down to the deck, and Jason managed to pull it up a few feet off the turf, and we continued on. And after that point, we stood off a fair bit.
For some reason, it just, the RPMs, my engine RPMs dropped off to nothing, and I had to drop the collective and go into an auto, but she came out all right.
Well, all's well that ends well.
Most
Yeah,
definitely. We still have a lot of work ahead of us, though, so it's not over yet.
Mark and Zoz return to the base and feed the digital photos into the onboard computer. Mark calculates the size and the surface area, testing whether or not the all-important ratios match the original.
How's the radiation levels look? It's all clear.
Mark and Zoz conduct a field radiation survey. The instrument, similar to a Geiger counter, will read out the ambient radiation levels.
Nothing.
They didn't expect to find anything unusual, dispelling some beliefs that the shape of the circles themselves can generate energy.
Let's go get the surveying equipment out. Take care of that next.
All right.
Excellent.
Next, Mark and Zoz try and scribe a grid onto the field.
I'd say never trust your senses, because oftentimes, especially with things of geometry, when you're laying out lines, it looks straight to the eye, but it really isn't. It's not until you take a grander step back that you notice what is actually happening.
Looks like the microwave paid off.
Once the grid is in place, they systematically begin the survey.
Expulsion cavity, grid square, 2-1.
First with the wheat plants.
So that looks like the same things that we've seen in those documents.
Each sample will be labeled and recorded into a database for statistical comparisons. In addition to plant specimens, Mark and Zoz take a collection of soil samples in linear formations, both inside and outside the circle.
Actually, where did we notice these expulsions? Which sections were these out of?
It was in 2-1 in the main circle.
Excellent, excellent. Did we find any outside? I know
No.
of the samples.
No expulsion cavities outside the crop circle.
So what were the results of the dirt samples that I brought you?
So this one's from outside the all the crop circle geometry, and we picked up no ferrous particles from in here. It's just sticking to the thing. Over here, this one is from 3/4 position inside the main structure.
Excellent.
And we picked up a lot of ferrous material.
Wow.
You can see it here sticking to the magnet.
Overall, the MIT postgraduate students confirmed that their 3 undergrad friends were successful in their efforts. They got the crop circle shape they were after. They created the expulsion cavities, and they deposited the iron particles. So what mark would they receive?
I would probably say somewhere around a B plus range, maybe B minus, is somewhere in that range. And I do that for a couple of reasons. The first is, the geometry is excellent. I mean, again, it's over 300 feet long and 100 feet wide. It's a very large crop circle, and after hearing how quick they did it in, I was very impressed by that. But if we were to take the previous results about the iron particles and some of the expulsions and the variations in sizes and bending that we've read about these, if we were to take those results as being true, we didn't quite find as many of those as we'd hoped for.
I think that I'd go along with Mark on not giving 100% across the board, but I'd give an A minus. I think that the size of this crop circle, the fact that they'd never attempted to even make a crop circle before, this is a first attempt. A lot of the things were right, and it was a large-scale attempt that was pulled off with pretty much flying colors, so A minus.
What was the experience like?
Crop circles were actually really a lot of fun to make. Like it was great wandering around here in the wee hours of the night with some night vision goggles on, just like tripping over ourselves and flattening out crops.
Interestingly enough, it is really a design project. As an engineer, we try and solve problems not unlike this one.
Well, I was really surprised at how much simpler the actual physical labor of crushing down the crops was. I was expecting that to be the most, time-consuming part. But once we got going and figured out where the bugs were, we were able to make that a pretty good process. And, our real time and effort went into creating the special effects with the iron and the microwaving.
I think crop circles are a great piece of public art. There's something that is underground. People are going out and doing it by themselves without telling anyone, and there's something that everyone can appreciate. I think there should be more of it. People should go out on the weekend and do a crop circle.
We've learned that many crop circle features can be replicated, but it takes more than two chaps with wooden planks. Which leaves us with a nagging question. Who would go to all this trouble to create artifacts in crops that can only be seen with a microscope? Earth mystery? Cultural mystery? Who can be sure? Whatever they are, crop circles remain for the present an enigma of our times.